Hey everyone, today we're going to do a review of the OneXPlayer Mini Pro with the Ryzen 7 6800U. I remember looking at this device when I got my first Windows handheld, the AOK Zoe, and I remember being curious on how it compared to my AOK Zoe back then. So when Geekbuying.com reached out to see if I wanted to give this product a review, I was definitely interested to check it out. They've also provided discount codes for a couple models. You can get the 16GB 1TB model for $849 USD, or you can get the 32GB 2TB model for $979. I'll include those links in the video description, and I'll show you how to complete the purchase with the discount code later on in the video. The scope of today's video is going to be a review of the specs, my first impressions of the device, and then I'll review the screen, sound, and a little bit of gameplay. I've also got a bunch of guides for the OneXPlayer 2 and AOK Zoe. Most of those will apply perfectly to this device, so check those out if you're picking this one up. But for now, we got a review to go over, so let's dive into it. So let's go over the specs of the particular unit that I'll be reviewing. So for the APU, it has a Ryzen 7 6800U. For the memory, it has 32GB of LPDDR5 RAM, 2TB of storage. It's a 2280 size M.2 SSD with a slot that supports PCI Gen 4. It has a 7-inch 1200p display. The device is 1260mm wide, 106mm tall, and 23mm thick. And when I weighed it, it was 615 grams. For I/O, we have two USB 4 Type-C ports, one USB-A port, and one 3.5mm headphone jack. There is no micro SD card reader on this device. For connectivity, we have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.0. For the controllers, we have Hall effect joysticks and dual linear triggers. It has a 48 watt-hour battery and comes with a 65 watt GAN fast charger. And finally, it ships with Windows 11 pre-installed. Now that we've gone through the specs for the device, let's do a visual overview. So the device feels really good in the hand. It has a nice soft matte finish. If you look at the top, that's where most of our buttons and I/O is. We have our USB-A, USB-C. At the bottom, we have another USB-C port. Testing out the buttons, they feel pretty good. They're larger buttons, probably one of the larger on a handheld. The joysticks feel a little bit tight and they click down nice. The D-pad feels good to press, and there's buttons at the bottom here along with the front-facing speakers. Then we have the LED lights on the side. The RGB lights can be controlled through the OneXPlayer app, or if you've updated it, the OneX console. So you just click on the RGB icon, and then you can pick from different colors that transition, or you can pick pure colors that'll just stay one static color. If it was just regular RGB, we might get an extra 3 frames per second, but because we can change it, that's probably at least 5 extra FPS. The device doesn't feel too heavy, and it's got nice grips on the back, so it's really nice to hold. Taking a bit of a closer look at the I/O, we have our power button and volume buttons at the top. We have our 3.5mm headphone jack, our USB 4 Type-C port, our USB-A port, as well as our heat exhaust. And a closer look at the bottom, we have 2 little notches for the official dock, as well as our one USB-C port. Not really anything else to see at the bottom. And finally, here's a closer look at the RGB. They are kind of subtle and they give off a bit of a soft glow. People often ask how the joysticks are on these handhelds, so I did a test at GamepadTester.com and I found that I got 0.2% error on both of them. Of course, this isn't the only measurement for joysticks, but for those that are curious, this is what the results were. The joysticks are medium sized, so if you're used to an Xbox or PS4 controller, they may feel a little bit small for you. One little tip, because the device doesn't have a micro SD card slot, I would recommend getting one of these SanDisk Extreme card readers. I got the USB-A one because I don't really use that port for much else, so having it in there isn't really a big deal. Thankfully, using my SD card slot was pretty simple with this adapter. Now we can move on to the screen and sound test. I have the volume at max. I don't have any audio enhancers installed, and I did the best with the current equipment I have to capture the screen as accurate as possible. So my thoughts on the screen. It's a decent screen. It's not as vibrant as, let's say, the Neo 2, but it's very similar to the OneXPlayer 2, the OK Zoe, and those screens are pretty nice in my opinion. The screen can be dropped to fairly dim settings, which is great for playing at night. And overall, I don't really have any complaints about the screen. I don't believe we can set custom refresh rates, not that I know of anyway, so that would be one drawback for it. Moving on to the speakers, they're not bad. They're a little bit quieter than some of my other devices. So I would recommend using something like FX Sound, or if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, get Dolby Access. I found that the volume is much better when you're using one of those applications. Overall, I don't really have anything to complain about. The screen is nice. I do wish the speakers were maybe just a little bit louder. That's pretty much it. Alright, let's move on to some game performance tests. I only tested God of War and Persona 5. The 6800U has been tested extensively, so I'm just going to do a short preview of the performance. And if you want to learn more, you can check videos for any other 6800U device. The performance will be the same. Alright, first up is God of War. We have FSR turned off, we have the resolution at 1080p, and graphics are set to low. With these settings and 28 watts, we're hanging in the mid 30s to high 30s. For this game, I definitely recommend using FSR instead of turning it off. Next up, we're going to use the same settings, except we're going to turn FSR to Ultra Performance. So we're going from no FSR to full FSR. And as you can see, the performance is much better. We're getting 60 FPS, a little bit under now and then, but it's hanging pretty close to that. The image definitely won't be as sharp, but on a handheld, you're not really going to notice unless you're looking closely. Next up, we'll try 15 watt TDP. We're going to have graphics set to low and FSR to Ultra Performance. This will also be at 1080p. And as you see here, it's close to 40 FPS, dips down a little bit to the high 30s, but overall runs pretty good if you want to save a little bit of battery life. If you want a locked stable performance, I'd recommend targeting 30 FPS and it should hold it no problem. Our next game is Persona 5. I did some testing on this game, but I'm only going to show one clip today. So I found that 15 watts is a good way to get 60 FPS locked. You can get this at 10 watts as well, but you need to lower the settings. I did test out potato quality mode and I got 30 FPS at 6 watts. Now let's move on to a summary of the pros and cons for the device. We'll start first with what I like about the device. So the screen is pretty good, it's fairly vibrant, and at nighttime you can dim it pretty low. I like the weight of the device, it's not very heavy and it's easy to hold for long periods of time. The face buttons are really nice, they're large and they have a good feel to them when you press them. I do like that it has Hall effect joysticks, mostly for the durability, and I do like the overall size of the device. It's small, but it doesn't feel too small. It feels like a fairly balanced device. Moving over to some things that could use improvement, and that would be the speakers. They're fairly quiet. They're not terrible, but they are quieter compared to others. Having a micro SD card included would have been really nice, and I really wish it had full-size joysticks. Having mid-size isn't bad, but full-size joysticks are much better. Alright, so that's going to do it for the review portion of the video, but I'll show you now how to use the coupon to get a discount. Alright, I'm going to show you how to buy from Geekbuying.com. So I've clicked the link for the 16GB 1TB model. This was found in the video description, so we're going to make sure we have the right model selected and we're going to add to cart. You're going to need to set up an account, but right now you can see that it's $10.99, so that's not the actual price that you're going to pay. I'm going to continue as a guest for now, but you can create your own account. You'll need to fill out this information, but we're going to skip that for now. And I'm going to show you, enter the code here. And then when you apply the code, you should see that the price drops down to $8.49. And then you just need to place your order and you should get the discount. Well, that's going to do it for this review. If you're also interested in the Win 4, I did a review from a Geek Buying unit that I had sent to me, and I also have a discount for that device as well. I'll leave a link in the description for that one as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.